So the next guy who's going to come up here is a 1 in a million. And he's a 1 in a million for many reasons. I remember we were at a camp training chiropractors, and I looked over one time, and his eyes were rolling in the back of his head, and he was like passing out. And I went up to him, and I'm like, dude, are you okay? And he goes, yeah. He goes, it's just my jaw's out. It's like somebody needs to adjust my atlas and my jaw, and I'll be okay. And he got adjusted, and he got a little bit better, but it happened again, and it happened again, and we were quite concerned. And it was about a week later, and I'll never forget the moment. I'll never forget the moment because I had just moved here from Canada. And I rented this beautiful house for a year on the beach, and my family wasn't there yet. So, it was kind of boring and lonely for me. I didn't even turn lights on. I had like a mattress on the floor in the corner, and there was no furniture in this big house. And so I flip open the laptop, and I get the email. And I'll never forget it. It was sad, it was devastating and inspiring all at the same time. And it was that my buddy had cancer and was given weeks to live. And if he was going to make it past weeks, that he was a 1 in a million. So the chances weren't good. And I can tell you by the end of the email that he had sent out, I thought to myself, well, that son of a gun is the 1 in a million. I know this guy. I know his dedication. I know his work ethic. I know his intensity, his commitment. I know this guy. He's going to make it. And now we're 6 years later, after 4 brain tumors and a bone marrow cancer, that to our knowledge, no one on the face of this planet has survived not just this long, but reversed their cancer. This is who you get to hear from today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the original cancer killer, Dr. Charles Majors.
Right? It's possible. There's 2 things for every cancer patient must do to reverse their cancer. Number 1, they have to know it's possible. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. They have to know that something different can happen. They told me I had a 1 in a million chance of reversing this. And there wasn't even a second guess that I wouldn't be that one. I had 100% confidence and 100% certainty that I would be that 1 in a million. Number 2, remember, it's not about how hard you're hitting. It's about how hard can you get hit and get hit and get hit and keep going. That how much pain can you endure? How much pain can you take and keep moving forward? And so, for a lot of you who get cancer or any disease, most people die. And one of the major reasons why they don't make it is because they give up. Somebody gave them no hope. They've lost hopelessness. They didn't think it was possible. They gave in. They quit. It got too hard. You have to sacrifice today. You have to go through the pain today to have the life you want to live tomorrow. And how do I know that? Because for most of you think, oh, this is just easy for Dr. Majors. It absolutely wasn't easy, and it still isn't easy. If you knew the amount of days I've sat with my wife crying that I don't want to do it anymore, that I sit on IVs for 3 or 4 hours a day, clots in my arm, you can't touch my whole arm, it's blue from here down. It sucks, right? It sucks coming home from office, 8 hours with patients, coming home at 7:30, have to do my workout, have to sit in an infrared sauna for an hour and a half, missing my family. It sucks. It's painful. It's not always fun. But in the end, it's worth it. Would you agree? That's the difference. Are you going to go for it? Are you going to keep going and going? And when the feedback would come in saying, hey, your tests aren't looking that good, what did I do? I did more, and I did more, and I did more. I knew there was a way. I knew there was a way. And that's the key with whether you're going through any struggle in your life or going through anything, you have to believe it's possible. You have to know that something different can happen. And so, here we are, 40 years later. Remember, President Nixon said put millions of dollars toward saying, we're going to find a cure for cancer. We're going to fight. Well, see, the problem is, if you looked at that, it says the fight against cancer. Remember, you don't wake up one day with cancer. You've been sick for years. Then you get cancer. So if you're fighting the symptom and never getting to the cause, something is causing the symptom to be there. Would you guys agree? And so if all I do is get rid of the cancer, even if I do it naturally, right? I'll send you, I've been to Spain, I've been to Mexico, I've been to Reno, I've been to probably 6, 7 different clinics. None of those clinics will cure you. None of the IVs and all the stuff I'm doing will cure me. All it did is minimize my tumor load. Thank God that was necessary to keep me going. And I had to do what? I had to keep getting to the causes and changing my environment that caused it in the first place. And so 40 years ago, and where are we now? 1 out of every 2 men, 1 out of every 3 women are being diagnosed with cancer. The fastest growing cancer right now in the world is with children now. We're seeing now brain cancer overpassing the #1 cause of cancer in children, which was leukemia. And we know that a majority of all brain cancers happen because of what? It's an environmental, it's a toxicity. Obviously, it's all multifactorial, multi-system failures. So we're watching as the world is getting worse, as our foods are getting worse, as our water is getting worse, as the GMOs are being put in our food, as we're getting more and more and more toxic, we're seeing more cancers. As our foods are getting less nutritionally efficient, and now we're more nutritionally deficient, we're seeing more cancers. So it's not a coincidence. So we've gotten nowhere. We've only gotten worse. Why? Because all they've wanted to do is attack the cancer. And so that began with surgery. That began with chemotherapy, right? Chemotherapy was mustard gas. It kills fast, rapidly growing cells. And then they saw doing surgeries wasn't always working, because if I just remove the tumor, which is necessary in some cases, but if I just remove the tumor, what's still there? The same environment that caused it, so what comes back? More cancer. So then they said, well, we need to move into chemotherapy. They give someone chemotherapy, which we know is very, very, very toxic. If you gave a healthy person chemotherapy, they get very sick. Now, I'm not saying not to do that. It's not that we're against it or for it. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. But that didn't work, because if I give you tons of chemo, I make you what? Even more sicker, and you end up with what? Cancer again. Yeah, I could minimize your tumor load, but now you're even sicker. The same cause that caused your cancer is still there. So then they went into radiation, the same thing. Then they said, you know what? It must be what's called a somatic theory, which means it must be our genes. It must be our genes. So then they said, let's go chase genes for the next 15, 20 years. And then they realized, oh no, one single breast has sometimes up to 4,000 different genes. we know based upon all the work Bruce Lipton and different geneticists, genes are turned on or off depending on how you live your life. We turn them on. It's our fault. We don't do it on purpose, but it's our fault that gene turns on or that gene turns off. So that wasn't working either. So now here we are. Surgery doesn't work very well. Chemotherapy wasn't working very well. Radiation wasn't working very well. And then the gene theory wasn't working at all. We know the research shows that when you take the genes out of a healthy cell and you move them into a cancerous or into an environment of cancerous cell. So I'm literally taking the healthy cell, taking its healthy gene, moving it over here to a cancer cell, and I actually just changed their genes. If the gene theory was correct, that cell should turn what? Healthy. And guess what happens every time? It didn't matter. That new gene and that cell stayed cancerous. Then they did the opposite. They took the actual gene inside of a cancer cell, they moved it over here into a healthy cell, and then you would think, well, it should turn into cancer if it's the genes. Guess what happens every time? Doesn't turn into it because it was the cytoplasm that's around the cell, the environment, that actually turned the gene on or off. When the environment is good, when the environment is healthy, the gene doesn't turn on or off, right? So we have the ability to change. That's what's great. That's great news. We have the ability to change that. By changing our environment, we change the outcome of our life. And so, why haven't we made progress? Number one, we don't know and we don't understand what causes cancer. Because they've been chasing after cancer and fighting cancer for over 40-some years. They've never once stopped to say, what's causing that? Number two reason, we're going the wrong way. We're going the wrong way. And some of you have heard this. But if you're going the wrong way, you're never going to find the answer. So again, if right now we're in Florida, if I get in a car right now and I start heading even farther south, but I want to go to Chicago, will I ever get there? I'm in Florida, I start heading south. When would I know I'm going the wrong way? When I hit the ocean, right? So now I say, you know what? I'm about halfway to the ocean, and I stop at a rest area, and I'm like, man, I'm nowhere close to Chicago. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy a faster car. I'm going to get a bigger engine. I'm going to spend millions of dollars. I'm going to go out and get tons of donations so I can get to Chicago. But I'm still headed the wrong way. Well, it doesn't matter how much money I spend. It doesn't matter what kind of car I have. It doesn't matter how many scientists I hire. If I keep going toward south in Florida, will I ever make it to Chicago? The answer is no. How can we ever come to a cure when we're going the wrong way? Money is not going to solve this unless that money is going toward causes. And the causes we're looking at today is environment. It's environment. And so, the germ theory. And this is where all medicine began. Right? So they thought that germs caused disease. That was the belief. So what they thought is that if you had a germ in you, whether it be flus and bacterias or viruses, whatever they are, they thought for sure that germ was causing your disease. And so what they did is that's how medicine began, right? They said, well, the germs are causing a disease. We just need to create drugs to stop the germs. But then you start investigating this, right? I'll have a teacher come into my office, and she says, oh, my God, I'm so sick. My kids are always sick in my classroom. I'm like, well, how many kids are sick right now? About 16 kids are sick with the flu and they're out. How many kids are in the class? 30. What about the other 14 kids? Are they in the same environment? Are they in the same exact building? Yes. So then how are they not getting it? I never thought about that. Because they have a different environment. They have a stronger immune system. Same thing. I'll have a set of twins who come into my office, right? Eating the same thing, living the same life, doing the same thing. One ends up getting sick, one doesn't. Or the mom gets the flu and no one else gets it. Or 3 of them get it and 1 doesn't. If it was the germs, we'd all get it. We'd all be dead right now. And so the germ theory is absolutely incorrect. Germs don't cause disease. It's our environment that allows the germs. Remember, you've been sick for years, then you get cancer. You've been sick, then you get the flu. You've been sick, then you get the diabetes, right? You've been sick, then you get. It has to first start with a body that's breaking down, getting weak, immune system's weak, before we ever have the symptom. So should we keep chasing the symptoms, or should we find out what's going on in the environment? Which one? We got to change the environment. I don't have to worry about the cancers. I don't have to worry about the viruses. I don't have to worry about all that. We need to get over here and change the environment. And obviously that's what I had to do. Yes, I had to come over here and also kill the cancer. Now, I chose to do it in a safer, natural way, but I had to minimize that tumor load. Why? I'd be dead right now. The environment that I've been damaging for 25, 30 years was not going to get changed in 2 weeks as that tumor finally shut off my brainstem. You guys get that? So there's a time and a place. There's a time and a place. So step 1 I talk about all the time is you have to stop making the cancer first. You got to change the environment. You got to stop making it. You got to test causes, find causes, figure that out. Step 2 then is it's now time to kill it safely, specifically. And then step 3 is we strengthen and rebuild the immune system. The only reason why we get cancer is our immune system gets weak. Every day you wake up, every day, whether it be you or your children or your parents, you'll have anywhere between 10,000, sometimes even more, cancer cells growing. But we have an amazing immune system. Our brain recognizes the cancer, sends a message down our spinal cord, through our nerves, tells our immune system to go attack the cancer. It's a phenomenal system we have. So we have to make sure our immune system is strong enough and we're rebuilding it back. So I can't be doing treatments. If I'm doing all these treatments that are destroying my immune system, not getting to causes, I may lower my tumor load, but now I have a weaker immune system, and I also have never changed the environment. And what comes back in usually over 90% or more of every case of someone who even gets into remission? What happens? It comes back because you didn't change the environment. You didn't strengthen up the immune system again. You have the same environment, the cancer comes back again. So it all comes down to environment. And we can see the 2 pictures here. One on the left, one on the right. We see the vultures over here. So I'm going to ask you guys a question. What came first, the vultures or the garbage? Which one came first? Do you know for sure that happened? Right? So now, if I was a medical doctor, I would go, not all medical doctors, but if I was most oncologists, I would go over there and I would do nothing but what? I would kill those vultures. And then I leave that environment the same. What comes back again? Bigger, stronger vultures. I kill them again, bigger, stronger vultures. And finally, they've taken over. We can't even kill them anymore. They can handle everything we're giving them. They handle all the poison, everything they're doing. So what would be smarter? To change that environment and clean up the environment, plant some trees, get some green grass, clean it all up. Can the vultures live there? The vultures don't eat grass. You guys understand that, right? They're going to leave. So I can clean up the environment, right? Or I can keep killing it. I can kill the cancer or clean up the environment. You guys see the difference? So did the garbage create the vultures, or did the vultures create the garbage? The garbage creates the vultures. Your environment is what created the cancer. Your environment created your diseases. Your environment created why you get the flu. Your environment first. We know that for a fact. And so, obviously the key is we clean up the environment. We clean up the body. We clean these things back up. And you can see the difference there. What's going to grow over here? Right? If I get someone's body there, and that's what we do with our Maximized Living, with everything we do, and you're going to hear today, we clean up that whole environment. Cancer doesn't live here. Viruses don't live here. Bacteria don't live here. Diabetes doesn't stay there. Fibromyalgia doesn't live there. None of that. You heard all the testimonials earlier this morning. You heard them all through the weekend. That's because when you move the body back into the environment, into homeostasis where it was created, nothing, no disease, nothing survives in that area. So what exactly is cancer? Remember, I said in the beginning, you have to know what cancer is. You have to know what cancer is exactly. Cancer is a metabolic disease. And if most of you understand the metabolism of a cell, every one of your cells, I know some of you can't see this, every one of your cells has these little mitochondria in them, and lots of them. Your mitochondria are what create the energy for your cell. Remember, they create the ATP. Remember that? And so in a normal, healthy cell, this cell can use oxygen and sugar. Even healthy cells can use sugar. So when an oncologist says that, you guys saw my post this morning, it's absolutely correct. They can use sugar. The cells will take in sugar quicker than anything, even normal cells, because it's such a fast-burning fuel. So, but a normal cell can bring in oxygen and sugar. And also can bring in one more thing. Does anybody know? There's one other thing it can bring in. There's 3 of them, but there's one other thing. It's called ketones. It's called ketones. So that's how a normal cell can get its energy. Every cell of your body needs energy so you to live. The metabolism. That's why it's called, cancer is a metabolic disease. If we take it and approach it in this, right, because we're still looking at environment here, we know with this normal mitochondria, it can bring in oxygen. It doesn't need sugar. It can move into these ketones. Now remember, even too much protein converts to sugar. These cells will figure it out. So now we look at the difference of a cancer cell. I want you guys to see the difference of a cancer cell. They have damaged mitochondria. Their mitochondria is damaged. And so this isn't some of the cancer cells, it's all of them. In order to be a cancer cell, the cell has damaged mitochondria and has an issue with its metabolism. Does everybody get that? That is a fact. That's every cancer cell of your body. It's not one, it's not two, it's not some of them, it's all of them. Cancer is a metabolic disease. So now we look at these mitochondria that are damaged here. These mitochondria cannot bring in oxygen at all. They don't bring in oxygen. So oxygen cannot. So in these cells, you cannot bring in oxygen at all because their mitochondria is damaged. These cells here, if you put ketones into them, ketones are actually, when you put it in a lab, if you drop ketones into the cancer cell, they die. There's 3 different ketones that you want to look into, but these are the ketones. And when we talk about it later, we talk about the diet. So it cannot take these ketones in. The only thing, remember, the cancer cell, the only difference between these 2 cells is the metabolic difference. And guess how many more receptor sites for sugar it has? Anybody know? What's that? It's between 8 to 16, depending. We know that. So now the only thing this cancer cell can use is what to live? Sugar. And when your doctor says that's not true, they have no idea what they're talking about. Ask them next time you do a PET scan, don't inject me with sugar. No, I can't do that because he couldn't find the cancer. You guys get that? So cancer cells have to have sugar. And here's why. Think of a normal healthy cell as a smart car. I just want you to think of this as a smart car. For every 1 molecule of glucose, which is what? What's glucose? It creates 36 ATP. What's ATP? It's your energy. So really simply, it's like a smart car. It gets great gas mileage. It only needs a little bit of sugar, and it can create a lot of energy. It gets 36 miles to the gallon, let's say. But a cancer cell, because it has damaged mitochondria, for every one molecule of glucose, it can only make 4 ATP. That's it. So what does it have to have? It has to have sugar. So it needs how much more sugar than this cell to give you the energy? It needs how much? 9 times more sugar. You guys get that? I know I went through it a little bit fast there, but really simply, a normal healthy cell gets 36 miles to the gallon, and a cancer cell only gets about 4 miles to the gallon, right? So for every 1 molecule of glucose you're putting in as sugar, you're only getting out of a cancer cell a little bit of energy. That's why it has to create all these receptor sites. That's why it does gluconeogenesis, which means it takes whatever's coming in protein and turns it into glucose. You guys get that? So again, that's the metabolism. So the more you know about cancer, the more you can reverse it. You guys get that? So now we know, how do we set this up? Because for me, I know now that the weaker I make this cancer cell, all these treatments over here are going to work better. You guys get that? Because that cancer cell, if I'm feeding it sugar all day long, it's strong as heck. But when I cut out all my sugars, cut out most of my proteins, increase myself with higher fats, this cancer cell becomes weaker and weaker. Now, even if we know, the research proves that when someone's in ketosis, going into chemotherapy, they get way better results than someone who's not. Why would that be? They don't need as much chemo, they don't need it as long, because their cancer cells are so much more weaker. Does that make sense? Everything works better. All your treatments work better. All my supplements, because I work with patients, my same cancer, not even near as bad as I was, and 4 months later, they're doing horrible, doing almost everything I did. Now, the mindset's a little different, but the diet isn't being followed right. So all the supplements, they need to take like hundreds and hundreds more supplements than I do to get the same effect. Interesting? Okay, so we know the difference between a cancer cell and a normal cell. Sorry, Travis. So how does cancer work? So we know that, and you guys have seen this before, we know a healthy cell has a certain characteristics, and we know a cancer cell has certain characteristics, right? We know this cell here, this healthy cell, uses oxygen for fuel. It has to have oxygen. It doesn't need sugar. It needs a proper nerve supply. It has a slightly alkaline pH. Not too much, not too less. Quit trying to get yourself alkaline of 9 or 10, right? The body needs to be in homeostasis. You're never going to get your body 9 anyway, because your body's buffer system will fix it. But either way, so that's a healthy cell. We know the differences. A cancer cell doesn't use oxygen for fuel. It uses sugar for fuel. It has an inflammatory environment every single time. It doesn't need a proper nerve supply at all. We know that. Dr. Mark's going to talk about this. It has acid or highly alkaline environment. So my cancer was a highly alkaline cancer. If you had me do a urine pH, you had me do saliva, you had me do blood, I was always over the top. And I thought it was amazing. Well, certain cancers are more likely to happen when you're highly alkaline than when you're lower. That's a fact. Because what did God create you? Did He create you to be highly alkaline, or did He create you in homeostasis? He created you in homeostasis. Right? So now, we talk about the environment. So if I'm living a life eating bad fats, I'm nutritionally deficient, I'm doing everything, right? I'm doing everything wrong, I'm eating bad fats. When bad fats, let me tell you how bad fats work. When you eat bad fats, they begin to cover the outside of the cell. So if bad fats, because remember, bad fats, trans fats, they will, because the cell is a lipid bilayer, your bad fats do not get in. They actually stick to the outside of here. They create inflammation. If the outside of your cell becomes inflamed, what can't get in there? Oxygen. And what does this cell need? Oxygen. But guess what cell doesn't need oxygen? This one. So the body's smart enough in its wisdom. God was smart enough to say, listen, if you're going to keep living this life, I'm going to put you over to here. These aren't cancer cells. They're called adapted cells. They're cells that have adapted to the environment you live in. They're just helping keep you alive. That's all they are. We know that for a fact, right? Because if your cells weren't able to change over from normal cells to cancer cells, right? So if I'm living a lifestyle, not exercising, not working out, I have severe neurological nerve damage, I'm eating bad fats, I'm eating sugars all day long, I'm living this lifestyle, I'm stressed all the time, my normal cells can't handle this environment. But guess what cells can? Cancer cells. So if my body wasn't smart enough to switch over to these cells, they would come over here. They would get no energy at all, and these would get no energy at all, and what would happen to them? They would turn black and die. You'd be dead fast. Your body God gives us a chance. Gives us a chance. Creates these adapted cells that are adapting to keep us alive. Now we don't want to keep them there, obviously. We need to change our environment so that we can keep going. And so cancer is a survival mechanism. That's all it is. Cancer is a natural wound healing process. So if the cause of the wound persists, the continuous natural process is cancer, right? Let's take a sunburn, for instance. The sun doesn't cause cancer. But if I'm burning the skin over and over and over, burning over and over, those normal healthy cells can no longer survive in this environment. Would you agree? So what do they have to switch over to? A cancer cell, right? Because you damage it and damage it and damage it, right? If you're eating, so let's just say that when I run a stool sample on a colon cancer patient, I'll see E. coli. I'll run that on them. I'll see a microbiome that's so damaged from antibiotics. I'll look at it. You'll see that they're not absorbing nutrients. I mean, there's severe inflammation. They've been autoimmune for 2, 3, 4 different years. They're inflaming. Because remember, what's autoimmune? What drug do they give them? An anti-inflammatory. Because they're inflaming the gut over and over and over and over and over. Finally, these cells say, I can't do it anymore. And then what do? They have to move into cancer cells. The cause of whatever your cancer isn't because the cancer just shows up. It's there helping you adapt. Cancer is a survival mechanism. Just like when you saw that plant there, right? That plant, if you ever see that, they will figure out how to go through a rock to get to the sun to survive and live. You guys get that? That there's an innate ability, whether it be a plant or whether it be in you, to survive whatever is going on. Your body will survive. It will force itself to live. Every symptom is the body doing the right thing at the right time, every single time. And so, Dr. Mark's going to come now and go through that. But I want you guys to realize as I end my part, I hope you leave with this one thing. Number one, it's possible. It's possible. Anything in your life. Right? I remember when every time I opened up my computer to look up multiple myeloma, it said death. It said horrible deaths. Your bones fracture. You lose everything. And mine was already in the brain, and you couldn't find anybody who had it. So I had two choices. Either this was the beginning or this was the end. And the way we approach things in life, if we see it as this is the beginning, like when you started your relationship, the beginning was completely different than the end of your last relationship. Would you agree? And it's the same thing with cancer or any situation you're dealing with. I had to see that this was the beginning, that this was going to be an amazing blessing in my life, that I'm going to not only figure this out and live, I'm going to figure out how to save hundreds and hundreds of thousands of lives. There's only one cure for cancer. There's only one. There will only ever be one, and that's getting to the cause. Thanks.
So here we are talking about environment. And the environment that you live in is what creates cancer. That if you live in a sick environment, that cancer is able to actually proliferate in your body. And it's not just cancer, it's any disease is able to survive in a bad environment. And the founder of chiropractic, D.D. Palmer, a lot of you guys know the story, some of you guys don't. Most people know him as he's this guy that gave the first adjustment 120 years ago. And the guy was deaf, he gave him an adjustment, the guy regained his hearing. But what D.D. Palmer actually gave us bigger than the adjustment is the principle of why the spine and the nerve system, the body, is able to be healthy and healing. He asked the question. D.D. Palmer asked the question, why is it that two people working in the same environment and eating the same food, working right next to each other, one of them gets sick and one of them stays well? Why is that? Ask yourself that question. This is what we need to start asking. We need to start asking this question. Why is it that somebody gets cancer and somebody doesn't? Why is it that somebody gets heart disease and somebody doesn't? Why is that? Why does that happen? You guys know this. You guys know this in your life. You guys know people that look good on the outside. They eat good foods. They exercise. They wear Lululemon everywhere, right? I mean, it's like that's the healthy person. But you still know them and they get cancer, or they get heart disease, or they get diabetes. And you scratch your head like, why does that happen? And at the same time, you know the exact opposite of that. You guys all know people, right? Raise your hand, that smoke, drink, cuss, look like death, smell like death, right? Raise your hand, you guys know it. Raise your hand if you have that person in your family. Raise your hand if it's that great uncle that just won't die in your family, right? You are scratching your head. Why in the world, how is this person still alive? How in the world does this guy not have cancer? That's what D.D. asked. That's what he asked over 120 years ago. And that's the principle based on what we're teaching you here today. Why does that happen? We need to find out why. Why does that happen? There's lots of research out there. Lots of research that will show you this, that will help you understand this. This is Masha and Dasha. Raise your hand if you guys have heard the story. Okay, a lot of people, some of you guys have never heard the story. This is a crazy story, tragic, unbelievable, heartbreaking. These two girls, Masha and Dasha, were born in the 1950s in Russia. And what happened in 1950s in Russia, they were born and they told the mom that the babies had died so they could take these babies and start to do research projects on them. They wanted to find out what's going on. We can find a lot of stuff out from these things, these kids. Masha and Dasha ripped from their parents. Mom told they were dead. And here's what happened with Masha and Dasha. You can see they have 4 arms. They have 3 legs. They share a lot of the same stuff. Each have their own small intestine. Each have their own stomach. They share the colon. They share the circulatory system. They share the hormones of the body. The only thing that's really different between the two is they have 2 separate nerve systems, 2 separate brains, 2 separate nerve systems. And everything that we're taught in our world, everything that's built upon the medical model that we live in right now is all based on the germ theory. You get a drug because you have a germ and you get sick. You heard Dr. Majors talk about that. You get a germ and you get sick and you take a drug to cover that up. That's what we're built on. And at the time, Louis Pasteur was really the father of medicine that created this germ theory. And he believed it was the germs that made you sick. But we know that that's not true. Why is that 2 people can work next to each other? One gets sick, one doesn't. It totally blows this out of the water, right? Well, there's another guy that was about the same time, Claude Bernard. His mindset was it was the environment that it was in. And Masha and Dasha were a great example of this. And what had happened is, as they were growing up, Dasha actually got sick more. She actually was sick more. She got measles. One girl got measles, the other did not. Think about that for a second. Same blood, same circulatory system. Why are we giving vaccines against measles then? Doesn't make sense. One gets measles, one doesn't. Why? Same exact blood, same exact germs. But one gets sick, one doesn't. Even one of them actually smoked and drank towards the end, and she was the one that never got sick. But what was different? It was the what? It was the nerve system. The nerve system is what was different here. And so if you start to look at research that's out there, and the research that's out there, it's amazing. You can find all kinds of research that talks about the nerve system, natural history of untreated idiopathic scoliosis and skeletal maturity. Here's what it says. Basically, it says that if you got damage to your spine, it causes sickness and disease, is basically what this says. Untreated scoliosis progressively gets worse with age, pain, fatigue, cardiopulmonary diseases, psychological issues. There's a 17% increase in mortality with damage in your spine, scoliosis in the spine, meaning their spine's out of position. Essentially what happens here, and a lot of you guys know this, but your brain and your spinal cord is what controls everything in your body. And the brain sends the messages down through your spinal cord, out your nerves to every single organ, cell, and tissue. So the nerve that goes to your heart keeps your heart alive. And what these guys are saying is that if you damage the nerve that goes to your heart by moving the spine or creating scoliosis there, over time, what happens? Sickness and disease sets in. Another research article, same thing, basically same message. Says exactly the same thing. Quality of life is decreased by this. You lose mobility, you lose quality of life over time because of this. And so decreased quality of life, 14 years less average patient with scoliosis, mortality rate of 17%, and they actually 2 times higher than the general population. If you have scoliosis, mortality rate goes up 2 times higher. This tells you right here, through the research, that damage to the nerve system causes what? sickness and disease. It creates that environment that allows sickness and disease, whether it's cancer, whether it's heart disease, whether it's diabetes, whatever it is, it's created from within inside of your body, not outside, from within inside your body. So you keep looking at research. And I love this because this is common sense stuff. Windsor autopsy, some of you guys will look at this, but that says 1921. You're darn right it says 1921. This medical doctor said, you chiropractors are crazy. You guys are saying you guys can adjust the spine and the body heals. You chiropractors are saying that you move the bone and God does the healing. You chiropractors are saying that if you adjust the spine, the body will heal the way that God intended it to. You guys are crazy is what Windsor said. I'm going to prove it to you guys that that's wrong. I'm going to prove to you guys that it's wrong. We're going to go find people that have sickness and disease, and if they died of a lung problem, we're going to trace the nerves after they die, trace the nerves back to the spine, and as it goes back to the spine, we want to see if there is that scoliosis or that damage or to the nerves in the spine. Was it there? They started looking through the research. You can see this. There's so many things all the way through. Stomach, liver, gall, pancreas, spleen, you name it, he found it. Almost 95% of the time, there was direct cause damage of the nerves that go to the organs inside the body. That means if you have damage in the nerves that go to your stomach, it's going to cause what? Stomach disease, sickness. If you have damage in the nerves that go to your lungs, it's going to cause what? Lung disease. And so if you actually look at what it said at the bottom, therefore 50 cadavers in disease, 139 organs, 128 of them were found to have direct cause of damage to the nerve system that went back to the organ. And the other 10, they found that it was the next level up, which means there's fibers that went to it still. That shows you right there. And this is common sense. So think about this along the way. If you have damage in the nerve, scoliosis, or damage to the nerve system, on the nerve that goes to your heart, long term, what's that going to cause your heart? Heart disease, right? But before the heart disease starts, the damage was there for years. The damage to the nerve system was there for years. What did it cause? What was the first thing that shows up? If I put pressure on your nerve to your heart right now at 1%, what's going to start to progressively happen to your heart? What kind of things, what kind of symptoms could happen along the way? You could be tired. You could be dizzy. You could have headaches. You could get high blood pressure. You could get high cholesterol. And of course, in the germ theory model, when those symptoms shows up, what happens? The doctors give you what? A drug to cover up the symptom, not look for the cause, to cover up your symptom. So what happens is you take the drug and now you still have the problem there and you never address it. And the sickness and disease continues to keep developing. And I put pressure on the nerve that goes to your lungs. Long term, what does that cause? It causes lung disease and death to your lungs over a long term. But what does it happen today? If I put pressure on your nerve today to your lungs, what happens today? You might not even notice it. See, that's the thing with this. The pressure on your nerve comes way before the symptoms even get there. And when the symptoms come, it's already really late in the process. If I put pressure on the nerves to your lungs, you are not going to have as much oxygen get into your body. You just heard that oxygen is necessary to kill cancer. And some of you guys, you go to work and you sit in bad postures, bad positions with already damage on the nerves to your lungs, and you start to lose energy throughout the day because if your lungs aren't getting enough oxygen, if your body's not getting enough oxygen, your body can't heal. You don't feel good. All you guys are sitting up in your chair better. Good job. Okay, so that's what happens. Okay? But the oxygen is not able to get to your body if you have damage on the nerves that go to your lungs. So if you start to wonder, wow, do I have this damage in my spine and my nerve system? And if you have this damage in your nerve system, when do you want to find out if it's there? Yesterday. You should have found out yesterday it was there. Do you want to wait until you get the symptoms of the organs dying before you do it? Or do you want to get to the cause and find out if the damage is there way before the symptoms ever show up? Way before it shows up. And so the only way you know if you have damage to your nerve system is to get checked up. You have to see what's going on with your spine. A scan, a posture, the best way is an x-ray. Find out exactly what's going on in that spine. If you can see an x-ray, some of you guys that are patients in my office, you guys know that if I see pressure on your spine, when we see that x-ray, it is absolutely mind-blowing to you that you start to trace it back on the nerves, and you're like, no wonder I have all these other problems that I didn't even tell you about. It makes sense now why I'm having digestive problems. It makes sense why I'm having problems with my cycle. It makes sense why I'm having problems with my thyroid now. So here's what you've got to look for, though. These are your warning signals. If you have any of these symptoms at all, These are the early warning signals that dysfunction and disease is starting to produce in your organs on the inside. Your cells, tissues, and organs. If you see these symptoms, any of them, skin conditions, these were put in there. These were built in there by God when he built us for our bodies to warn us that something's going on. This is your warning light. By the time these warning lights come on, it's really late in the process already. That's why I recommend everybody get checked up for this. That's why we check babies to 100-year-olds in our office, even if they have zero symptoms, because it's important to find this before it happens. But if you especially have these symptoms on the inside of your body, you need to have this checked for why is this happening? What organs, what cells, what tissues are being affected along the way? That's what you need to find out. The best way to see that is by taking what, patients? Got to get the x-ray. And once you see the x-ray, then you can connect the damage of the nerves and how it's affecting your organs, your cells, and your tissues. So if you're a guest here, go ahead and raise this sheet up right here. Okay, take your pen that you've been taking notes with this whole time. Okay, here's what you're going to do. If you're a guest, you have no clue what's going on with damage to your nervous system, what organs, cells, and tissues it's going to. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and take that pen, you write your name at the top, put your phone number, put your date of birth, and then on the right-hand side, you're going to actually circle what is the best appointment time for you to come in this week to our office. And also you can see here at the bottom that there's also a spot there if you are sitting here thinking about, but my mom really needs this. My brother, who's super sick, he needs this more than anybody, but he's just not here. Write their name in there. Whether they're here in Charlotte or whether they're across the country, it does not matter. We will help you find a place for them to find out how their nerve system is working and what's really going on with their environment inside their body. As you're filling that out, my staff is going to be coming through the aisles. And we're going to sit here. I'm going to answer questions for you guys. We're going to talk about damage to the nerve system. We're going to answer questions about the environment that your body's in and how it's affected by the nerve system. But as you're doing this, my staff is going to come down the aisles, and they're actually going to schedule that time and get you the paperwork that you need and get you the directions to your office. Got it? Start writing. Clap. So when we get to this point and they're writing, like I don't care how big it is, Chuck, when he does large seminars, doesn't matter, he still has his staff go through each and every person there. And as he's doing this, what are people thinking? You've got to kill all the objections along the way, correct?
So you on? Got me now? Good. So one of the objections you're going to have is you're going to say, well, even if there's something wrong, I can't afford it. And listen, you can't afford not to. You heard what happened to me. You heard how much money cancer costs. You can't afford not to. You deserve it. Your family deserves it for you to get healthy. There's only two reasons why you wouldn't get checked today. Number one, you don't think you have a problem. There's only one way you know you have a problem, Chris. What do you need to do? You got to get checked. So don't use that as an excuse because you don't even know you have a problem. Number two is you may have a problem and you don't think we can help you. After the testimonies you heard, after what you saw here, we absolutely can help you without a question. And as the staff is going around, some of you are going to say, well, I need to ask my spouse. What if he says no? What are you going to do? Some of you are going to say, I do it anyway. Great. Fill out that card. Right? Some of you are going to say, well, if he says no, I can't do it. Listen, if your spouse is anything like my spouse, listen, you're here for one reason. I know your spouse wants you better. There's no question. So make sure you fill that out. We'll worry about that later. Forgiveness later is going to be better, but you get it filled out. Some of you are going to have the objections on, I don't know if you take my insurance or not. You know, that's probably one of the worst questions that we ever get, right? Are you here? Did you come here today because we take your insurance? Or did you come here today because you know that we are one of the best offices to take care of you? So keep filling out that sheet. Keep filling out that sheet. The staff's going to come around. They're going to look at you. All of you that are guests, raise your hand. But they know who you are because all of you guests have a yellow folder there. They're going to bend down right next to you. They're going to ask you, what day, what time, what day, what time, what day,
some of you
what
guys,
time.
Some of you guys are going to want to sit there and look at it, and you're going to be like, you know, I'm just too busy this week. You're going to try to put it off in your mind, but you know darn well if you don't make this appointment for first thing this week, you're not coming. And so this is so super important that you make that scheduled appointment. Take a priority in this. You need to know what's going on with your nerve system right away.
And if all of your loved ones were around you, whether it be your spouse, your kids, your grandparents, your best friends, and you asked all of them, is this something you think I should do? Do you think it's time for me to start taking care of myself and get healthy? What do you think all of them would say? Absolutely. Fill that out so we can get you guys checked today. So again, you guys gotta, you guys, with objections you're getting, you're handling 4 or 5. Well, I'm just talking through this and I'm watching my staff go around, you know. So this is probably, depending on how many are in here right now, some people are gone right now. So this is only probably 200 more than at my makeover. So my staff will go through every single chair.
Before we hit that. So Travis, go ahead and play that video and then we'll hit the questions on this.